Okay, this was his idea, I'm just letting you know, okay? It's time to go brick deep! I told you it wouldn't work.
You know what, Barry? Don't ever make that joke again, okay? It goes like this. Welcome back, everyone. It's time to go balls deep. Not for reals, though. I love you, Barry. Aww. Yes, guys, we're back at it again with the legendary Tekken 101. But this time around, we are finally going to explain the mystery behind Zoro's eye.
Yes! 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 Yes!
In our last video, we went over the faculties that Zoro possesses, allowing him to achieve his dream of becoming the strongest swordsman in the world. One of those was being trained by the current strongest swordsman, Mihawk, where during his training, Zoro ended up potentially being half blind, having a scar on his left eye. After the time skip, the One Piece community started to speculate their theories on what exactly happened, and if this loss of an eye gave Zoro something in return, you know, equivalent exchange and whatnot. Or is Zoro simply just a one-eyed samurai adding to his badass factor? Well, during an interview between Oda and Katsuki, it was revealed that Oda was planning Zoro to be a one-eyed samurai for a very long time, just shortly after starting the series, that was. From this interview, some fans might interpret that Zoro is just a one-eyed samurai and nothing more. But what makes things interesting is that when Katsuki asks why Zoro became one-eyed, Oda refused to answer, giving the impression that revealing this information would be some kind of spoiler. This secrecy could have just been Oda trying to save the revelation of Zoro's training with Mihawk, which in itself would have been a huge deal at the start of One Piece, or it could have been something that contributes to Zoro becoming the greatest swordsman. If it was any other manga, I would have understood people just saying that he probably lost it during his training, and that we shouldn't look too into it. However, this is One Piece we're talking about here, and as you know Oda, there are no unused Chekhov's gun in this series. Also, the latter idea isn't really far-fetched, because we have characters like Issho Fujitora, who is completely blind and compensates for it with his incredible use of his Colour of Observation Haki. His mastery over this Haki gives him a strong sense of danger, as though he has spidey senses. Along with that, he can even accurately predict quick surprise attacks, going head to toe with the likes of Doflamingo. Issho's strength is backed up by his role of being an admiral. I'm not saying that his blindness is directly responsible for his incredible swordsmanship and prowess, but the idea that his observation Haki accelerated due to his blindness is quite logical. After all, this Haki is similar to that of a sixth sense, which even in our world is said that the brain rewires itself to boost the remaining senses when one loses its sense like hearing or sight. Think of it like Daredevil. Hence why Issho is able to combat against extremely strong, fast and agile enemies without any problem. His observation Haki was literally boosted to compensate for his disability. In fact, with Haki, Issho is actually capable of seeing people around him as images in his mind's eye, represented as collection of colored auras. Likewise, he has shown the ability to read and hear the true thoughts and emotions of other people using this form of sight. Issho was only able to achieve this by having the absence of his vision, being dependent on his mind and will to adapt. But where does this bring us with Zoro? And what's gonna happen when he opens his left eye? If it wasn't obvious, and if you watched our last video, we are going to explain the Dojutsu Theory, which is basically using the highest level of observation Haki and then imbuing it into a single point, being the eye. This form is illustrated with the color change and the eye adopting an extra iris. We already know that Zoro has mastered the use of color of arms or ornament Haki, which plays a huge importance to Zoro's swordsmanship. However, cutting through literally anything isn't all there is to being the best swordsman. Rather, observation is fundamental for the application of skill. So knowing this, Mihawk wouldn't ignore this aspect to Zoro's training, meaning that Zoro should have mastery over a form of observation Haki suited for swordsplay. Make sure you guys stay till the end, as Tekken will go over exactly how Zoro's training might have gone with Mihawk to get to this stage. Also, don't forget to smash that like button to show your support for our One Piece series. So the theory goes on with suggesting this advanced observation Haki is utilized hypnotized by none other than Mihawk, giving his unique looking eyes. And as an extension, we believe Cavendish with his Hakuba personality, Imusama, along with Zunesha, also uses this balls deep dojutsu. Like, we can't be the only ones to think that Mihawk eyes look eerily similar to Imusama, Zunesha the elephant, and Cavendish's alter ego. Come on, just look at these eyes. You can't tell me they aren't connected in some ways. But before I continue explaining, I need to shout out a Youngwa Matthews from the One Piece wiki, as during my research I stumbled upon a forum post which I have to say it was one of the only few posts that aligned to what we were thinking. I added it down in the description below if you lot want to check it out. But coming back to the balls deep dojutsu and its users, it's likely that they all share a heightened form of observation haki. Now we know looking into brief moments into the future is possible with advanced observation haki, as we saw with Luffy and Hitokiri. But what if there was a different variant or even a higher level of mastery one could achieve when it comes to this form of haki, even affecting those around them like an awakened devil fruit? Now before you guys start thinking that this theory sounds absurd, just hear me out. For evidence, Mihawk is known as Hawkeye all around the world, putting some significance over his eyes. Hawks generally hunt their prey from so high up that the prey doesn't even realize that they are being hunted. They are also said to be very proficient in using their eyes, that they can spot a rodent from 30 to 60 meters high or higher than a 10-story building. Similarly, the title Hawkeye could be signaling to us readers that the eye Mihawk possesses is like that of a hawk, and that his opponents are like preys who don't even realize when they are caught. But what if there is more to this? Well, in chapter 561, we see Mihawk showcasing something very interesting. As Luffy is running through the battlefield at Marineford, he encounters Mihawk. Luffy being Luffy then tries to hit Mihawk with a jet bazooka. However, he swiftly cancels the attack as if he was shown his future fate by Mihawk, which foretold that if Luffy went on with this attack, it would mean that his arms would have been sliced off. Now you could say that this was probably Luffy's instincts or an early activation of observation haki, but the thing is, we have never seen Luffy dodge an attack like this up until that point, and even in the future after he learned future sight and observation haki. Mihawk legit projected his counter attack in the form of a vision into Luffy's mind. Oda even draws into a shot of Mihawk's eyes as he is activating the attack, signaling that the eye had something to do with Luffy's premonition. And to reinforce this theory, this ability to show others' thought projections could also be seen with the elephant Zunesha, where during Jack's second attack at Zao, Zunesha was able to project Jack's ship and what was going on at the bottom of his legs onto Momonosuke. During this predicament, the eyes were once again given focus to, although there is the fact that Momonosuke and Luffy have the ability of hearing the voice of all things. And as you know, during Luffy's fight with Kaido, Momonosuke was able to tell what's going on by observing Luffy from afar. This was also kinda seen done by Aisa during the Sky PR arc. So although the interaction with Zunesha might have been due to the ability of hearing the voice of all things, but I truly believe it's also the combination of having a super advanced observation haki. And a quick note I wanted to add is that even though I'm saying Zunesha has the balls deep dojutsu, it's likely a different variation to Mihawk's and Zoro's, as I believe color is the determining factor to its effect. Zunesha's eyes were seen as turquoise with the ringed iris. This brings us to our third connection and evidence to this theory, Hakuba, Cavendish's alter ego who only comes out when he's asleep. Cavendish, who is already a strong pirate, boasting a huge bounty of 330 million berries, pales in comparison to the skill of his alter ego. Hakuba's strength honestly gives more meaning to the eyes that appears when he takes over. His eyes are usually seen as blank white when Cavendish is unconscious. However, when both personalities are fighting for control of the same body, we were able to see Cavendish's eyes change, being illustrated with a double iris. One side showing Cavendish's natural blue eyes and the other side showing a yellow-orange similar to that of Mihawk's, as seen in chapter 773. During this date, Cavendish is shown to have incredible speed with his sword. In fact, Hakuba's skills are so unreal that it was said that in the Rumble Kingdom, people mistook Hakuba's rampage as the wind slicing up people. And he's not only fast as the wind, but the opponents don't even know what hit him. Similar to how Mihawk Mihawk where his Hawkeye catches his prey with them never even noticing. What we're saying is that Hakuba's incredible speed and swordsmanship could be due to him unlocking his balls deep dojutsu. It's very likely that this advanced observation haki gives the user an overall perception increase, along with giving the user foresight and the ability to project these thoughts to those around them. With that notion, we come to the fourth candidate, who was shown with a double iris, Imusama. Now in the anime, Imusama's double iris eyes are shown to be red. Again, going by the theory that these different colors represents the different level or use of this balls deep dojutsu. It's even likely that Imusama observation haki is much more evolved version than anyone else's. I would even say that time is a factor in this ability, where its power is determined through how long you had these eyes. Then again, there's also the factor of experience. However, I'm coming to this conclusion because Zunesha lived for over 1000 years. And can you actually imagine this giant ass elephant training his eyes? Either way, the second reason I believe time could be a factor to developing the balls deep dojutsu is because there's a theory about Imusama being over 800 years old, where the community believes that he went through the immortality surgery which Law's fruit, the Ope Ope no Mi, provides at the cost of the user's life. With this surgery, it would mean that Imusama had the eyes for over 8 centuries, leading to the cultivation of an unparalleled haki within his eyes. If this power did turn out to be a form of observation haki, where one could put visions or even projections into someone else's head, then the position Imusama holds as the ruler of the world, the head of the celestial dragons and the world government would make a lot of sense. Imusama with this eyes could easily be able to influence people's thoughts to fit his narrative. And if you were to believe that he has been around since the time of the Void Century and the Ancient Kingdom, then Imusama with this eyes could have been puppeteering the whole world until now. But again, this is just speculation at this point. We haven't even seen Imusama in battle, so we can't make any analysis. However, it would make a lot of sense as I'm expecting Imusama to be incredibly strong, having all the haki maxed out. Like this dude is the final boss, right? After the Blackbeard Pirates, that is. With that, let's finally get into Zoro's training with Mihawk and why Zoro is keeping his left eye shut at all times, as if he's cultivating the haki needed for the balls deep dojutsu. Tekken, take it away.
So when it comes to the way Zoro was trained by Mihawk, I like to personally think that Mihawk did not lift a finger to help Zoro for the vast majority of the 2-year time skip. Maybe right at the very end as like a final test, but for the most part, we saw how Mihawk trained Zoro. During Dressrosa, when he had the flashback after he defeated Pika, Mihawk forbids Zoro from touching alcohol until he could master the armament haki technique on his swords, right? So I imagine it's that kind of stuff that Mihawk did to sort of push Zoro further without actually training him himself, okay? Also, maybe Mihawk felt like Zoro still wants to fight against him to become the greatest swordsman, and it might cheapen it a bit if like Mihawk was like his personal sensei for 2 years, okay? We saw this a little bit in the anime when Mihawk told him to go up against the boss of the human drills. Zoro said, oh, it's nothing but a stepping stone, I'll defeat this giant human drill and then go back to proper training soon. It was probably stuff like that really throughout the course of the time skip. And then at the very, very end, as like maybe like a month or so before Zoro and Perona went back to Sabaody to reunite with the Straw Hats, that's when Mihawk personally stepped out as like the final challenge that Zoro has to face. However, even then, I do not think Mihawk utilized the Yoru, because I think Mihawk wants to save that for when Zoro and him have their proper final battle to determine who's the strongest swordsman in the world, right? And I think Mihawk, given the fact that he's fought against a lot of strong swordsmen, and Shanks lost his arm, so Mihawk feels like Shanks is no longer like, you know, a fun challenge. Mihawk probably sees that in Zoro. In fact, he's essentially mentioned that before, that he does see that potential in Zoro. So Mihawk is like, you know, kind of bored with his life, maybe a little bit, and he's like, I can't wait until we get to that final battle. So for the final challenge of his training during the time skip, I like to think Mihawk just took out his little sword around his neck, the one that he sliced Zoro with at the Baratie, and honestly could have defeated Zoro with just that blade back then. And so it's sort of like a callback to that, where Zoro's, you know, getting ready for his final challenge. Mihawk takes out the sword and he's like, this blade, this tiny little pocket knife was able to best you last time we fought. Now let's see how much you've grown since then, right? How much you've learned on my island. And then so Mihawk armament hakis up his little pocket knife. Zoro takes out his blades, armament haki, and then charges at Mihawk and manages to either destroy the pocket knife, like slice it in half, or, you know, force Mihawk back with it. And Mihawk finally realizes, like, okay, your training is complete. Go back to your friends, and someday, the next time we meet again, Roronoa Zoro, will be our final battle. I like to think that's how it went there. Now, when it comes to his eye and the observation haki, obviously there's so many theories abound by this. Whether or not Zoro Zoro has something special with his eye, or his eye's actually just injured and that's the reason he can't open it, just because he can't. But I like your idea that, you know, Zoro somehow was like training in observation haki using his eye, in the sense that he's keeping it shut so that when he finally opens it, his haki in observation will just explode. Sort of like training weights or whatever, like in Naruto when Rock Lee took off the weights and he could move wicked fast. Might be something similar to that, but with the eye instead. Or rather, that's something I could see Mihawk instructing him with his like hands-off kind of training method. Be like, Zoro, you know, you are going to shut your right eye and you will be forbidden from opening it until you actually face against a really strong opponent. You have to open your eye. And maybe one time Zoro was like trying to follow that regiment with keeping his eye shut and he accidentally opened it, and that's when Mihawk slashed him because he didn't follow the training properly. Not enough to actually wound his eye. He still has one, but he's like, no, I told you to keep it shut or you're gonna get cut again. And then Zoro never opened it again after that point, okay? But when he finally does, going up against a really strong opponent, maybe Shiryu of the Blackbeard Pirates or something, he's gonna open his eye, and then that explosion of observation haki, he might have a level of katakuri to like see a little bit into the future, or maybe even beyond that, or maybe his observation like instantly locks on to all of the weaknesses of the person he's going up against, similar to Chopper's brain point, perhaps, you know? Maybe it doesn't last very long because observation is not his focus, it's more armament, and we know Conquerors now as well, so it'll just be a big burst of observation to slice the opponent down, and then he shuts his eye again, and maybe it has like a recharge or like a cooldown period where he has to wait longer and longer in order to activate it again. He can't just use it all the time because it'll kind of like, you know, mitigate the effects or whatever. But, you know, I could see something cool with that. It is anime after all. The moment where Zoro's like, I guess I'll have to open both of my eyes to fight against you. That'll be epic, that'll be cool, and I can't wait for it. Thanks for having me on, everybody. Tekking signing out.
Thanks again, Tekken. It's always a pleasure having you here, and you too, Barry. But on that note, going over the idea on why Zoro has not opened his eye as of yet, I believe it's more likely due to the fact that he's still cultivating his observation haki and his eye is not ready, rather than it being a one-time use or needing a cooldown period. But again, it could be possible. I'm just saying that because we don't see Mihawk with this limitation. But then again, this could be the time he cultivated this haki and again experience. With that, I also don't believe that Zoro will open his eyes during Wano, rather it'll be against the Blackbeard Pirates in his fight against Shiryu, who has the devil fruit that allows him to become invisible. Lastly, I wanted to quickly bring the resemblance between Zoro and Rayleigh, as both of them have a similar scar. The only difference being is that Rayleigh has his eyes open now, but Zoro still has his closed. The similarities between Zoro and Rayleigh is on the same level as Luffy and Roger. They both are swordsmen, being vice captains of their crew. They were the first members of the pirate crew, and also the captains were and will become the pirate king. They both also like drinking sake a lot, and both seem to have some sort of dark aura about them. Like Zoro has his Demon Blade 9 sword style Ashura, where he literally appears like a demon to his opponents, and Rayleigh is known as the Dark King, which again could be related to his use of Haki. Let's not forget that Rayleigh is the one that taught Luffy the basics of Haki. Now, the next theory suggests that Zoro is suppressing his true powers inside his closed eye. It's sort of like holding your own strength back so you don't kill yourself and the weight of your own strength. Zoro is saving the power for a special moment, a moment where he's on his last leg, because remember, Zoro hasn't really been challenged by anybody after the time skip. Everyone is just fodder to him. In his fight against Kaido in chapter 1010, Zoro did say that his Ashura attack was everything he had at that moment. However, we have to realize that Kaido is actually Luffy's opponent. Zoro had trust in his captain to deal with Kaido, and what do you know, right after Zoro uses his attack and delays Kaido from not finishing off Luffy, the captain stands up telling Law and Zoro to step back and trust in him. That was never a situation where Zoro would have used his trump card and opened his eyes, because doing so would mean that he didn't trust in Luffy. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that Zoro, under his left eye, is cultivating his balls deep dojutsu. This form of observation haki will allow Zoro to foresee any potential realities and cut through it, and having this ability being revealed against Shiryu is probably the best thing that can happen. Anyway guys, let me know what you lot think in the comment section below. Make sure to check out Tekken's channel because he's a lot of fun to work with. My guy's jokes, and most importantly, he's literally a walking, talking encyclopedia for One Piece. And don't forget to smash that like button, ding the notification bell to stay updated with all our other content. With that guys, we'll catch you lot next time.